People don't vote. They don't vote. I mean, it's a generalization, but I'm gonna. Is it okay if I film this? It will not be posted. It'll just be used for myself and some Democrats who care about trying to get young people out to vote. So young people don't vote. Minorities tend not to vote, especially like African Americans and Hispanics. And as a result, the country is going in a certain direction. Now, you may like that direction, or you may not like that direction, but I think that if you care about certain issues, it's a direction that's not terribly effective. So what I wanted to do is to get together with, having had some wonderful conversations with my favorite nephew, with him and some friends who may not be terribly excited about voting. Right now, what I'd like is if we can just go around real quick, just tell me your name and tell me on a scale of 0 to 10, whether you're going to be 18 or not during this election, doesn't matter. Assuming you could vote, right? 0 to 10, how excited are you to vote? Okay. How likely are you to vote, right? So actually those are two different comments. So how likely are you to vote? So 10 would be, if I have to, I'll crawl to the polling place and vote. That's how important it is to me. 0 is no way, I'm staying home. I don't even want to waste the gas or the electricity if you have an electric car. So that's 0 to 10 on that. And then how excited, right? So I'm absolutely going to vote is a 10, absolutely not going to vote is 0, 5 is somewhere in between, right? 10, how excited, 10 is so excited, can't wait. 0 is, I don't pay any attention, couldn't care less, right? Okay, so they're similar questions, but slightly different. And then what I want to hear from you is, what is the issue, the problem, that is most meaningful to you? For example, climate change or abortion or gun violence or whatever it is. Just in general, what's the issue? So since you and I've been talking, why don't you, what's your name? And well, how old are you? That would be interesting to me.
So my name is Connor. I'm 16, and I would say for voting when I'm 18, like 100%, I'm definitely gonna vote every single time. But like my level of excitement, I feel like it's like 5 or 6, because I feel like I've always been taught that like California is always gonna be blue, and like it's not gonna really matter. But so like I just don't think that like one vote is gonna, like, I know this sucks to have this mindset, but I just don't think like one vote is gonna change a lot. So that's why my level of excitement isn't very high. And then one thing I think is really important that we need to change probably is like gun control. I think there needs to be like less gun control in California, in America especially.
What do you mean by less gun control?
Just like, I feel like there's really tight regulations, especially in like California, and I think that the regulations are like way less in like states like Texas and things like that. And I think it's really important to be able to protect yourself like in the best way you can, and like even if that means like people, I think you need to put trust in the people to like serve and like protect themselves and not use it in like a harmful way to other people, you know?
Well, thank you. Who's next?
I want to go next.
Okay.
So I honestly do not care at all about voting. So maybe my excitement would be a 3 or a 4, because I feel like I have no impact, you know? And probably the issue I care most about is climate change. We can't be having the Earth dying.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so right now, so you're going to be 18 by November 8th, right?
I will, yes.
You'll be 18 in October. I remember that day 18 years ago. So right now you're not likely to vote.
I mean, I guess I'll vote.
You might do it for your Uncle Rick.
Yeah, sure. It depends how long it takes. I want to like try it out and vote once, but if it just kind of like sucks, I probably won't vote again, because like, why would I waste my time?
Well, you can vote by now.
It's like I have other things to do. I don't know if I'm...
on a piece of paper and.
All right, yeah. If it's like,
It's
if it's
convenient, right?
if it's convenient, yeah, I'll do it. If I have like a spare 15 minutes, I don't want to be taking more than 20
So
minutes.
so the democracy, 16 minutes too much, 14 minutes, 15, it's okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, good to know. So, and the reason you're at a 3 or a 4 is what? Because you don't think your vote counts, or you think there's
Okay,
nothing to vote for?
It might count for like smaller issues inside like the community, but like I haven't seen anything change in my life like so drastically.
Do you think that
So, like-
the last election, that there was no difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump being president for another
I mean, yeah,
4
there's a
years, for
difference, but,
example?
like, it didn't affect me, Like it might have affected a lot of other people, and that sounds like really selfish, but like it didn't like directly affect me, so I like don't care enough to go out.
Okay, or you don't know how it directly affected you.
Yeah,
Okay, are you open to the possibility that maybe it actually does affect you?
sure, yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate your honesty. I mean, I want you guys just to be totally honest, right? So, who's next?
I'll go.
Okay, what's
I'm Spencer. I'm 17. Probably like I'm not really too excited, so maybe like like a 3 or 4. Like not like just like yeah, I'll vote. Like probably like an 8 or 9 on like will I vote. It just like depends like even if I don't like either of the candidates, I think I'll just go for like whatever one I like the or like like hate the least. But on like on an excitement scale, it's like yeah, I'll be 18, but it's like I aren't like Connor and Ethan were saying, I don't think like my vote will like mean that much. And I do know that like the vote like voting for like president, it can like have an effect on me, but like Ethan said, I haven't really seen one, so I'm not really sure like
okay?
what the point of voting is, but I'll vote still.
Cool. What's your biggest issue that you care about or problem that you'd like to solve?
I'm not really sure, but I mean like I guess like I would just go with gun control. It's like I don't really know where I stand on it, but I just know that there needs to be like certain rules on like who can buy guns and like make sure that like people can defend themselves, but like they're in the right hands and not in people who are gonna like kill innocents with it. But it's like I don't really know like the details on like what like
Okay.
we've done to do it.
So you guys have a slightly different view on that. You want less gun control. You're thinking maybe more.
I mean I don't know. I just think like I do think people should be able to defend themselves, but it's just like we just have to make sure that they don't get into like the hands of people who are going to use them like for other things.
Right. Have you been afraid in school that maybe your school would be in the news that night?
Not where we live, but I do know that like there are some bad areas like around here where like that could be a possibility because they have like security checks and everything. But I've never really felt threatened at my school, even though my school doesn't really have any like defense weapons if that were to happen.
Got it. Okay. Thanks.
I'm Garv, I'm 17. Like list to vote probably 9 or 10, but excited probably a 2. I feel like it's more of a thing that I have to do versus something like I'm thrilled to do. And the issue that I'd probably say would, speaking on gun control, I think that we're in a time where we don't necessarily, it's not like we're fighting a third party enemy where we needed to bear arms. I think that can be, the Constitution could be amended in that situation because I don't think there's necessarily a need to be holding a gun. But I think climate change is the most important right now because that's pretty much the future of what everything is going to happen. It's not going to matter what gun control or anything if the planet's not there. So.
Okay. Thanks.
I'm Ramir. I'm also 17. For excitedness, I'd say I'm at like 4 or 5, just because, like Connor was saying, I know like California's been a blue state for many years. So even if I were to vote either way, the state would still end up being blue, and therefore like my vote wouldn't have much of an impact. But likeliness, I'd still say I'm a 7 or an 8, just because I know it's like important to vote, and it's like a big issue that a lot of people aren't voting, so I would do it just for that. Biggest issue I think right now for me would be healthcare. So I know a lot of families are spending like tens of thousands of dollars per year on healthcare, but like some money can be redirected from like say the military budget for like healthcare to make it easier for the lives of Americans, just so they can get like so that they have easier access to healthcare, which is like one of the most important things in life.
Cool. Thank you.
I'm Chad. I'm 16. My excitement would be like 3, cause like the same thing as them, and then I would for like having to do it, probably like a 6 or a 7. I honestly like. I also agree with them. Like, I don't think it will affect me like that much, because like each year, in each like 4 years, when a president will change, I don't think that really affects me that much. But I know it does. But in my head, I don't think it does, because I like each day of my life, like it hasn't really changed. For my opinion, I don't really have an opinion on any of the topics, but probably yeah. I'll probably like climate change, but I don't really know, because I don't have a huge opinion on that stuff. But
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Thanks. Cool.
Can I add something?
Yeah, please.
I also think that like one of the biggest problems is like the concept of voting itself, and like especially like since like the media, like people like us, like we don't really know that much about voting in general, and like the problems that are going on. But especially like the media, like when you see something, it like manipulates. Like the first thing that you see, it's just like a lot of these different outlets are really biased, and I think it can like manipulate different people like into believing one certain like perspective, and that just causes them to vote, and like they don't really know the whole big picture about everything that's going on and make their own judgment from there. They just see one thing and have a tunnel vision from there. So I think like this manipulation of the media is one of the biggest problems in like voting itself, and this changes like the regulations and laws greatly, because it's just the people are manipulated into believing what like they first see.
So, are you saying that like when you vote, you want to like know both sides, so you actually
Exactly.
know like, so like, but you're saying like a lot of people who vote like will just like turn on the news and like see like one news outlet,
Yeah.
and then like they'll agree with that, but like for you, you're gonna like listen to both sides before you decide.
Exactly. Especially like parents.
Well,
too.
well put. Nice clarification.
Like parents, like growing up, a lot of them have one mindset, and they inflict that onto their kids as well. And the kids, like they're not very intelligent because their parents have this perception that
Right.
they teach and put onto them.
Right, and social media, of course, just exaggerates that, right? So I want to say a few words, and then I'm going to turn it back on you, because I want to ask you some specific questions. Would you just get me in this? 'Cause you. So here's what I'm hearing. No one's above a 4, right? In terms of enthusiasm to vote, and yet most of you said, okay, I'll do it, right? It's kind of, so the goal here is for me to share a very small amount of information and perhaps a new perspective, for you to have that number go from a 3 or a 4 to maybe a 7 or an 8 or a 9 or a 10. So I think that our education system has let you all down. We used to teach civics more than we do. And unfortunately, I don't think we've ever really taught it well. What civics means to me is how your voice works and is counted and makes a difference in the country that you live in, right? And so one of the reasons that things have not changed as much as you might want them to change is because young people don't vote. The percentage of people 18 to 35 who vote even in a presidential election is about half of the percentage of people who are 65 and older. So in other words, old folks who may have different values than you have, with the possible exception of the 3 of us who are old here.
Wait, you said 65 and older.
Yes, well, you're close enough to 65 that it counts.
Statistics are statistics, and I'm
Okay.
65.
Okay, well, the 50 to 65 still votes a heck of a lot more than young people. It's like as you get older, you vote more because I think you have some realizations like, oh my God, there are things I care about, and in fact, electing the right people can actually make a difference. See, you don't believe that yet, it seems, because you haven't really seen where that's true or not true, and it just seems like a pain in the butt to have to do that. So I'm gonna teach you everything you need to know about civics in one number. This again, I've been working on this for decades. It's like, how do I make teaching civics, how to have your voice heard in government, as simple as possible? One number. It's like a game. It's like Mario Brothers game or whatever. It's like there's a goal, right? how do you get to that goal, and how you get to the goal of getting anything you want in the United States of America on a federal level. The game is to get to the magic number. You know what the magic number is? The magic number is 279. If you can elect 279 people who believe as you do, either less gun control or more gun control, or let's really fight climate change, or let's really take care of people who have health issues. For example, all the millions and millions of people who have diabetes who literally cannot afford insulin, right? So we can take care of that. There's actually a bill that says we're going to cap the price of insulin to $35. So people don't have to choose between, am I going to buy food or am I going to buy insulin, right? If insulin is $200 for whatever, right? So there are practical things, and I'm going to go through a bunch of those. But I want you to know that in America, we are a democracy, and a democracy is a mathematical concept. So is a totalitarian dictatorship or a monarchy. So in a totalitarian dictatorship or a monarchy where you have a king or a queen, how many people does it take to get what that person at least wants? One, right? So if the king says we're going to do this, if the dictator like Putin says we're going to do this, it happens. You got one person. We have a what? We have a democracy. And a democracy is a mathematical concept that says 50% plus one of whatever group it is, and they get to make the decision as to what happens. 50% plus one. Okay? So it's a mathematical, it's just basic math. Now there are exceptions to that, and we'll talk about that. But for the most part, it's 50% or one. So if you elect 279 people who care deeply about climate change, or gun violence prevention, or transforming our healthcare system, it will happen. If you elect 279 people, say, oh, every kid who lives in Thousand Oaks gets $150,000 a year when they reach 18, from 18 till the time they die. Literally, you could pass a bill that said every single kid 18 and over for every year gets $150,000 a year for the rest of their life. That would be a constitutional thing to do. And if you got 279 people in Congress to agree to that, it would happen. Anything that you want, anything you want. Free pizza 5 times a day for every American in the country. Okay? That could happen. How many people do you need to make that happen? 279. Now, does anyone know what that 279 is composed of? Anyone want to guess? Okay. How many members of the House of Representatives are there? Okay.
Like,
Again, we don't teach civics.
something like
435. So your congressman, who's the congressman here? Okay. So Julia Brownley, your congresswoman, who I've met, she's very nice. She is one of 435 members of Congress. Approximately, it's like 800,000, 850,000 people are represented by a congressperson, right? And then they have a census every 10 years and they redistribute it. So for example, California lost one congressperson in this last census. Florida picked up 2, Texas picked up 1, right? It constantly gets readjusted, right? So we have 435 members of the House of Representatives. We need a majority of them to vote for the Let's Give Pizza to Every Person Every Day Bill Act of 2022, okay? What's more than 50% of 435?
279.
No.
No.
435 divided by half would be 217 and a half, so you need 218. So if Julia Brownley and 217 other people vote for the Pizza Act of 2022, then that bill would pass what?
The pizza?
It would pass the House. It pass the pizza, yes, pass the pizza. In the House, in your house, because of this bill. So you have 218, Ram's house, exactly. 218 in the House. Then the bill goes where? The Senate, exactly. How many people in the Senate?
60.
100. Right? There will only be 100 unless and until what? This guy's on it. Right. So if for example Puerto Rico becomes a state or Washington D.C. becomes a state, then it would be 102. So there's 2 senators for every state, no matter how big the state, right? But right now we have 100. And so how many senators do you need to pass the Pizza Act of 2022 in the United States Senate?
51.
12 or 13.
51. 51. What did you say?
I
Ethan, how can you be so wrong on these?
Hold this, my hand hurts.
Yeah, I got you.
Well, now.
Oh.
Okay.
I thought it was like 12. I know there's like a 12 or 13 number in like this
Well,
political
hold on.
stuff.
It gets a little more complicated. Okay, so generally, you just need a basic majority, which out of 100 is what? 51. But there is this thing called the filibuster. How many of you heard of the filibuster? It's a stupid name. But what it means is if somebody objects and says, no, this is too important. We can't let a simple majority pass the Pizza Act. And the filibuster, you need 60 votes to end the filibuster so that you can actually pass the pizza bill by 51. It's the stupidest thing ever. It comes from the racist past. It was all about stopping bills that would help black people, basically. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's the core of it. So you have 218 plus 60. How much is that? 278. But what was the magic number?
270.
Right, so who's the extra person?
Some random person.
The president.
The president, because the president has to what? Has to sign the Pizza Act of 2022. That's it.
Veto.
Now, if he vetoes it,
You need 2/3.
exactly, you need 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate. Never going to happen, right? So that's why it's important to have a president. So people who hated Hillary Clinton, I hate Hillary Clinton, but they care about climate change. If a climate change bill had come to Donald Trump's desk, he would have what? He would have vetoed it instantly. But if Hillary had been president, she would have signed it. So that one person in the White House makes a big difference, right? They're equivalent to a whole lot of it's the difference between 218 and 290 and 51 and 67 in the Senate, okay? So here's the cool thing, right? There are 48 Democrats in the United States Senate who agree with me, and I think Susan and probably Ed, that we got to get rid of this filibuster thing. Because Mitch McConnell, you know who Mitch McConnell is? He's the Senate minority leader. He and the Republicans have been filibustering everything. Even bills like background checks for guns, right? The vast majority of the country wants it, but it can't happen because there are not 60 senators who can overcome a Republican filibuster. So basically, we're in a situation now, even though we have a democracy, the minority in the country, which is Republicans and their views, and in Congress, they get to stop virtually every single thing. You may have heard about that. There was this push for voting rights. They stopped that. There was a push for Build Back Better, which would have massive things like $35 insulin and child care for people who need it, and pre-K education, and the boldest climate change legislation in the history of the world. And it was filibustered by the Republicans, and in fact, because, and also this budget reconciliation thing, which had some of those things in it, it couldn't pass because of 2 senators. There are 2 senators. So we have 50 senators that are Democrats and 50 that are Republicans. But we still have the majority in the Senate. Why? Because we got a secret weapon that we elected in 2020 that can break a tie in the Senate. No, president can't vote. Close. The president of the Senate, the president of the Senate is the vice president. So the vice president comes down to the Senate, sits up on the podium, and casts the tie-breaking vote when there's a tie. So we have 50 senators, and we have Kamala Harris we have the 51 votes we need to get rid of the frickin' filibuster. But we have two Democrats who don't want to do that. And so as a result, all of the things that I'm going to talk about are blocked by mainly the Republicans, but then these two Democrats. One is a guy named Joe Manchin. He's a very conservative Democrat. He's still a Democrat from West Virginia, which is a very Republican state. And then there's this crazy woman named Kirsten Sinema. I could use other words for her, but she's back.
But Richard, what's their argument for keeping the filibuster?
They don't have a consistent argument.
Well, their argument.
You
know what it is.
Well, their argument. You want to say? I mean,
Yes,
I
their
know.
argument is that, you
Here, get your mom.
don't, you don't like the filibuster because right now the Republicans are using it. If it was changed and the Republicans and the Democrats were the minority, right? The Democrats would use the filibuster to keep rules that you probably would be very against from coming into law. So it's a sword,
Right.
but it kind of depends on who's holding the sword.
Right. But here's the thing, and the back on you. Hi.
We're back.
The 48 Democrats and the 222 Democrats in the House and most Democrats around the country, including me, believe in this thing called democracy. And we don't, and it's like, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. We understand that. But Mitch McConnell and the Republicans for the last decade have blocked virtually everything that America wants, that's at all progressive, that's at all changing the way the country is, it's at all moving forward. And at some point, they have so abused that we're saying, you know what, we'll just work really hard to hopefully never be in the minority for a long time. But we understand at some point we will be, but ultimately we believe in democracy. And democracy is a majority, it's not 60. So that's the answer to that. So you have 48 Democrats in the Senate who are willing to vote to get rid of the filibuster. You have Kamala Harris sitting there in the White House, ready to take her limo down to Capitol Hill and cast the deciding vote. But we're too short. We have 48 and we need 50. We're on the 2-yard line, right? This is where elections come in. So in this midterm election, there are 20 Republican senators or Senate seats that are up for re-election, 20. 2 is what percentage of 20? 10%. So if we flip 2 Republican seats out of the 20 that are up, we get our 2 more senators, and we can change the Senate rules as long as we win all of the ones that we have up. We have 14 up, right? And here's what's going to happen. And I want to know if this will change your excitement, okay? So, I listed 25 issues that could happen instantly if we keep the Democrats in the House, we keep the Democrats in the Senate, and we elect net 2 more, just 2 more, right? Go from 48 to 50. And you tell me whether this increases your willingness to vote. And then I'll explain how your vote in California is part of that, okay? Voting rights in America. Right now, literally, there are laws in different states that say that the Secretary of State or the governor or the state legislature can throw out the vote of the people in that state if they don't like that vote. Crazy, right? I mean, that's insane. So the people vote, and there are now laws in a few states that say, well, we don't trust the people because we think there's fraud because they're parroting a particular former ex-president who thinks that the last election was fraudulent. You know who I'm talking about? So they're all saying, oh, the voting system is fraudulent, we got to fix it, and we got to be now in charge. No matter what the people say, we're not going to trust the vote. Because mail-in ballots are, they're unreliable. I mean, it's all BS, right? So voting rights is a very big issue. That can be changed. We're only 2 votes away from passing voting rights legislation that will prevent states from taking away the ability for people to actually elect the people that they want in those states, right? It's a big deal. The biggest thing for me as well as for you is climate change. Some of us are old enough where we're not going to see the most devastating effects of climate change. Maybe we will. Ed and I, our grandma lived to almost 102, but 100% you guys are going to get really, really affected by climate change. I mean, it's already starting to happen, right? So you are right, and I've been working on climate change issues for decades, and it's far worse than you probably even think, right? Because once the heat gets to a certain level and continues to massively melt, for example, the Arctic ice pack, right, which is covering up these bogs of old forest and grass and whatever that have been creating what? What is decomposing organic matter? What does it create?
CO2.
Worse than CO2.
Methane.
It creates methane, which is 68 times more potent in trapping heat than carbon dioxide. Once it's a domino effect, so heat rises, the ice melts, and then methane then pours out, which causes the heat to go up further, which causes even more what? Ice to melt, which causes even more methane, right? And then these things now fall, the ice now falls into the ocean, like the size of Rhode Island or Delaware, and that increases, I mean, Miami's in trouble. I mean, there's so many places that are literally, by the time you're not even close to my age, our country is going to look very differently unless we have massive, radical legislation to have everybody have electric cars, right? And we're doing some of those things in California, but we need to do more than just California. So climate change. We're 2 votes away from getting the most extraordinary historic climate change legislation in the history of the world. We're 2 votes away. We're 2 votes away from protecting a woman's right to have an abortion. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about this. I know it's an emotional issue. It's a religious issue for some people. But you ever heard of Roe v Wade? Okay, no. So Roe v Wade is a Supreme Court case that said that every person in America has a constitutional right to have an abortion for the first trimester, and then other circumstances even beyond that. Donald Trump was able to get 3 Supreme Court justices. We now have a significant majority. We have a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. How many people on the Supreme Court? 9. What's the magic number of the Supreme Court? 5, exactly. So again, democracy, a majority of 9 is 5. We have 6 Republicans on the Supreme Court who are against abortion. 6. So there is a bill that was brought to the Supreme Court that was saying that you can't get an abortion after 15 weeks, and there are other bills saying you can't get it once the baby's heart starts beating, which is at 6 weeks. So I don't know about you, but you may have sisters or girlfriends who want to have the right to have an abortion. The Supreme Court's going to take that right away in May or June of this year. Abortion will once again be illegal.
Right.
You have to run?
Gotta go to the bathroom.
Okay. Will be illegal in the United States of America by May or June. Do you disagree with that, Ed? It will be functionally illegal. Functionally illegal.
Yeah, there's going to be some gray areas to it, but the Roe v. Wade, as it stands now, will not be standing in a few months. I agree with that.
Anyone care about that issue?
Nah.
But I guarantee you if there were 18, 17, or 18-year-old girls sitting around, they would. Okay? Number 3, getting money out of politics. How many of you would like to see a system where people can't buy congressmen or senators? Right? 2 votes away. Equal pay for women. Women right now do not have a right to have equal pay for equal work. 2 votes away. Background checks for gun purchases. 2 votes away. banning assault weapons like the AR-15s, AK-47s, 2 votes away. Providing dental, vision, and hearing for senior citizens, providing paid family leave, ending partisan gerrymandering, lowering insulin and other prescription drug prices so that people can afford them, providing a pathway to citizenship for dreamers. Do any of you know people who are dreamers? Okay. Transitioning to electric cars and creating renewable energy jobs. Look at you. Outline Monsanto's glyphosate and saving bees and other pollinators. Do you know what happens if we lose bees? It's a big deal, right? Bees are incredibly important. Ending police abuses, ending animal cruelty. Here's one that might be interesting to you. There is a bill called the Marijuana Justice Act that my friend Cory Booker, he's a senator from New Jersey, has put forward. And that says that marijuana is going to no longer be illegal federally. Right now, even though marijuana is legal in California, the feds, the FBI, the federal law enforcement could arrest you for having marijuana. Did you know that? It is illegal federally. And this bill would also take away some of the prison sentences for people who, in different states, who have been thrown in jail for years because they have a joint. Okay? 2 votes away. Raising the national minimum wage, lowering college tuition loan rates and forgiving some student debt, and giving 3- and 4-year-olds pre-K education in America, and so many other things. So all of those things I mentioned and many, many more were 2 votes away. Now, here's where you guys come in, right? Now, you happen to right now have a Democratic congresswoman, but there is this very strong belief that a lot of the Democratic Congress people, and again, why do we need, if we care about those things, why would we need Democrats to be reelected to the House? Because those bills have to pass the House before they can even go to the Senate. Got it? So you need the House, you need a majority in the House, which is how many?
5.
218, 5 on the Supreme Court. Put your knee down. So you need 218 in the House, and then how many in the Senate? 51. So you could change the rule so that you can actually pass bills by 51 instead of 60, which is pretty much what it always is, right? So you and other young people in California, even though it's a blue state and that's not going to change, if we lose a few of the Democratic Congress people, including, for example, Julia Brownley, you're a congresswoman, it is very certain that we will lose the House of Representatives, which means all of these things, even if we pick up 2 more senators, we're not going to be able to pass the House. Right? How many Democrats are there in the House of Representatives right now?
3.
There are 222.
Oh, wait, that's
220. I know these numbers. The numbers are hard.
that's
right?
the other thing.
I'm throwing a lot at you. Okay, so we have 222. We need to keep 218 in order to pass. Let's just talk about climate change, because raise your hand if you agree that climate change is a big frickin' issue, right? So if that's all you care about, am I keeping you awake? I think so. Okay. Too much gluten. Okay, so if all you care about is climate change, and all the other stuff you don't want to even pay attention to, you need to have 218 Democrats, because they're the only ones that vote for climate change bills, in the House of Representatives. We have 222. How many do we need to lose to then lose control of the House and make it impossible to have climate legislation for the next 2 years? 5, exactly. Right? Because if we lose 5, they have 218, we have 217. Which means that Kevin McCarthy or Donald Trump, more likely, will be the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Donald Trump will likely be the Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Through Kevin McCarthy's mouth.
No, for real. If Donald Trump wants to be Speaker, the majority, which would be the Republicans,
They could appoint.
they can appoint you. They can appoint.
Yeah.
No,
They could.
believe me, if Donald
Really
Trump
could.
wants it,
Doesn't
it's
have to
his.
be- Doesn't have to be somebody who's a member
Right.
of the House to speak for the House.
So Donald Trump doesn't believe in climate change. And if Democrats in the House say, hey, let's pass this climate change piece of legislation to reduce emissions, to incentivize electric cars, etc., Kevin McCarthy or Donald Trump would say, I'm not even bringing it up for a vote. Go screw yourself. That's how politics gets played. If you have the majority, you have the power. If you don't have the majority, you don't have the power. How is the Speaker, have you heard of the Speaker of the House of Representatives? Okay, very important, third in line for the presidency. So there's the president, the vice president, and then the speaker. Right now it is who? Nancy Pelosi. Okay, she is chosen by the majority, right? So, and then the speaker decides which bills get brought up, which bills don't get brought up, and no one can do anything about it, right? That's how powerful they are. But again, you have to have the majority to get the speaker, right? So if we get if people in California say, "Oh, California's a blue state; it's already Democratic," I can't. My voice doesn't matter, and you guys sit home, and Julia Brownlee loses by 250 votes, which is not uncommon, because not that many people vote in midterm elections, so a few votes can make a difference. And Julia Brownlee would have been the 218th congressperson who believes in climate change, and now we only have 217. That changes the country. Those 250 people that didn't vote in Thousand Oaks change the frickin' country. Does that make sense? It's unforgiving. Unforgiving. Do you know how many votes, you know, remember George W. Bush? Do you know how many votes he actually won the 2000 presidential election by?
A million.
Was it under 500 or something?
Yeah, 537. The difference between him getting Florida's 29 electoral votes, which put him over the top, or not, was 537 people in the state of Florida. Al Franken, remember Al? You know Al Franken, he's a comedian. He was senator from Minnesota. He won by like 300 votes. That was the entire state of Minnesota. So your vote actually does count. And it even counts more in a midterm election.
Well, does it count with respect to the Electoral College in California?
I'm sorry?
The Electoral College, having an Electoral College, doesn't really matter in California, you know, for president, because we are so blue, so all of our electors are going to go for the Democrats.
I understand that. But it does matter in terms of electing
Yes,
you
of
know,
course, it's a direct vote.
other
for
positions in that election.
Senators
So
and-
we're not, but we're about to have the most important midterm election in history, where we're either going to get started on fighting climate change and doing all these other things, or we're not, for 2 more years. So if we get 2 more net Democrats elected to the United States Senate, we still have Joe Biden in there for 2 years. He believes that climate change is a really big threat. He wants to do every single thing possible to stop it as much as possible. And if the United States takes a leadership position with these really historic, really powerful climate change legislation, that will give us the moral authority to go to China and to go to other countries and say, come on, you gotta join in with this. But if we keep doing nothing, there's not been a climate change piece of legislation that has passed in like 20 years. You know Avatar, right? And James Cameron, the director. I took James Cameron on a tour to meet with senators and congresspeople in 2010, right after Avatar came out. And we were talking about a climate change bill in 2010. And he was lobbying these congressmen and senators to, please pass this climate change bill. Because if you saw Avatar, right, it's about...
Wait, Uncle Rick, I think they needed to go at 3.
Okay, how much time?
It's 3 o'clock.
Okay, give me 5
Okay.
minutes. So we have a chance to do it. We've never been able to do this stuff. And how many votes are we away? We're 2 votes away. And so when I look at you, I'm not just looking at people who can vote for Julia Brownlee or a Democratic senator or whatever in this election, but people who have influence over your friends in other states where their vote may be even more important than yours, right? So I just wanted to give you kind of a very kind of civics for dummies, right? And break it down in a way that most people don't know. So here's what I want to do. I just want to go around, and let me have the back because I know you have to go. And I want to ask you if, in fact, this has helped you increase your desire to potentially actually go and vote. In other words, the question is, if in fact we are only 2 members of Congress away from getting pretty much not yours, okay, because your issue is on the other side of that spectrum, and you have to wait till you have a president who could sign a bill to reduce gun restrictions, right? Okay, but everybody else, if you're talking about healthcare, you're talking about climate change, talking about guns, we are 2 votes away. And now you understand there is this game. The game is to get to what? 279, or to get, if you can get rid of the filibuster, get to 270, and we're at 268. So let's start with you. You were a 3 or a 4. Okay, you wanna tell me where you are now, and if anything I said has you able to kind of reevaluate how important your vote might be.
Well, I'm definitely a lot more inclined to want to vote now, probably around like a 7 or 8, just because we spent a lot, like the last few decades, dancing around a lot of issues like climate change and healthcare, and seeing that we only need a couple more representatives in the government to help move these bills forward. It doesn't seem like too far fetched. So just going out there and voting, if that has enough power to make the difference, then it's definitely something that should be done.
Okay, so from a 3 to 4 to a 7 or an 8, that's awesome. Anybody else?
Yeah, probably I was a 3 or 4 before. Probably like 6 or 7 now, because like I feel like now it's like Ramir said, like a little bit of votes can make a difference, and I think like I'm not necessarily like more excited, but like I think I'm more like inclined to, because I know that I can like make a change in this country.
What would it take for you to get actually excited, or politics and voting and excitement just don't fit together in the same sentence?
Yeah, I think like, I mean, I'm not really sure like if I would like ever like be like excited to, but it's like I'm going to, because it's like it's more like not some like a result I'm excited for, but it's like a result we need, not like it's like something that we need. Like
Okay, you're not excited to brush your teeth, but you now know, for example, that it's important.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I would say around the same thing, except
From what to a what?
A 2 to a 7. I'm not necessarily excited, like you have to do it, but my thing is the only reason that no one's excited is because it almost feels like for the past however many years that no matter how much we vote, nothing actually happens. So it almost seems like it's an ineffective way. And then by knowing that something could happen by these 2 votes, it kind of motivates you to, like, maybe something will actually happen for once versus just sitting there and not doing anything.
Cool. Thank you.
I went for like a 3, I think, but now I'm at probably 6 or 7. Just like from like the topics that you were saying, like climate change, what you were saying like makes sense. So I feel like if you like put our vote out there, then it could help the topics that you were saying.
Cool. And now the hardest one, my own favorite nephew, Ethan.
You're probably not going to be happy about this, but honestly, maybe I went from a 3 to maybe a 5 tops, just because, like, I don't know. I hear people talking about this all the time, and it just bores me the hell out. But, I mean, I kind of get what you're saying about the 2 votes. It's just, I'm never going to get excited about it unless it, like, actually hits me directly on, you know, like, I need something that actually changes my life. Like, maybe, I don't know, I can't go to school or something because, like, the government shut it down. So, like, I need something to actually happen to my life.
Okay, well, I mean, but you mentioned that climate change was an issue for you. I mean, that may not be having a day-to-day impact on you yet, but it will.
Actually, it kind of, I mean, that's the only issue I'm, like, kind of concerned about, just because, like, COVID's around, and I know that, I guess, a little bit of a spur of climate change, and also about okay, well, I don't know. I know global warming. It gets like really hot during the summers, so that's kind of hit me. But like anything else, I don't really care about. Like I haven't been shot before, so I think I don't really care about gun violence. And yeah.
Can I just counter that? Like,
Dude,
like think about anything that's ever happened in the past where people just like Americans in general wait till it happens before they act. Wouldn't it be better to prevent it from actually happening? Because it kind of just like you're waiting for something bad to happen before you act on it when you can prevent it as a whole.
Yeah, but I don't think that's human nature. I think it's human nature to, like, humans are inherently selfish, and they're only gonna make change happen when it directly impacts themselves. And I see a lot of what Ethan's talking about, and where a lot of people come from, is that they can't see directly where it's coming from, so that they don't care about it, because that's just the mindset that people have. They're not gonna care about other people. They're gonna care about what's best for themselves.
Like,
If
if
they
you're
don't
not
see it,
going
then
out
they're not gonna change it.
Protests, you know, you're not going to rallies for gun
Well, I
violence.
personally don't think it's effective way. I don't think you're gaining anything by that. But personally, it's like if someone passes a climate change law and they decide to build more infrastructure and enforce laws, like why is that such a bad thing?
No, I think you're right in that. I just think it's really hard to change the mindset of Americans.
I
because-
agree with that, but at some point it's gonna have to. Otherwise, we're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, yes, and listen, I think education, right? And so we spent like 45 minutes together, and based upon what I've heard from you guys, with this new information, this new perspective, it's like, oh, and you've literally reevaluated your approach to politics, which was the whole purpose of this, right? I'm a weird dude, right? I have a political science degree, so does Ed, by the way, and I just love this stuff. So I eat it, I sleep and wake up with thoughts about it, and it hurts me, it upsets me, it scares me that people don't know even basic stuff, right? Because we just mentioned a few of the issues. There are so many more things that are affected by you voting or not voting. And Ethan, but I've heard what you said from other people, and it's now my job and people like me to help translate what's happening, right, in local, state, federal government into communications that allow you to understand how it affects you personally. Okay? And I'm coming to you last because you had a very different perspective. But tell me, because the truth is 279 is 279.
Yeah, no, I definitely have a much bigger, like, inclination about, not excitement, but inclination, because, like, no matter what viewpoint you have, no matter where you come from, voting is really important for what you truly believe in. And even if it may be for the other side, then I think it have a really big impact. 1, 2, 3, like every single person definitely has a direct impact on like our legislation and our political system.
Right, you actually do have the power, and I agree with you. I think protesting, rallies, marching, I mean, I think emotionally it might be satisfying, but the only thing that really counts is voting, right? So if you don't like how things are going, register and vote for different people, right? I mean, that's the basis of our democracy. So what number were you before and what number are you now?
2 to 7.
2 to 7. Fantastic. Listen, guys, thank you. I really appreciate it. And we can talk about how to do some things like further and maybe to pick issues that you really care about and show how, and I can introduce you to members of the city council, congressmen, senators, the governor, whatever. And so there are avenues that I can provide, and Ed and Susan can have other avenues as well, where you can have your voice heard even more. And, maybe get some college credit stuff so that they look at you as not just being super smart kids, but actually trying to make the world a better place. Any quick questions? I think we're done. The pizza still exists. Susan, Ed, any comments?
Just in terms of this group, which I know was initiated by you, but I think also Ethan saw the